Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena. Myself and Athena are still here in Trinidad, but this week we should get an idea of when Ava is going to be joining the boat again. That will tell me if I can get started on some of the bigger projects on my to-do list, or if we're going to be splashing in the next couple of weeks. Until we know when Ava is going to be joining the boat again, I'll hold off on starting on any of the major projects because I don't want to leave the boat in a state where it's all torn apart and we can't splash because of that. This week we're going to be making new mooring lines complete with new mooring compensators. We're also going to be installing some new 10-watt wireless chargers in the cockpit to replace the old 5-watt ones. And I've got another few projects on the list. This is a mooring compensator. Its sole purpose in life is to smooth out the yanking motion you can have on your mooring lines in a rolly marina or with some bad weather blowing through. Over the last 2.5 years of full-time sailing, we've had a little bit of both, and mooring compensators do make a dramatic difference. Let's start this week's video with a little flashback to when we were in Mandelo in Cape Verde. The marina there is extremely rolly. It is the worst I have ever tried, and that gave our mooring compensators a real workout. You may have noticed a squeaking noise in the background. It's because the marina here, while being pretty secure, is also a little bit on the lumpy, bumpy side. So much so that it has already wrecked one of our mooring compensators. And there's already a tear in the next one right up here, so I'm sure that's not long for this world either. The one over here on the starboard side, which is a different brand, is doing much better. So the next time I have to get mooring compensators, I'm gonna stick with this brand. All praise Uinmer. Turns out Svende from Uinmer or Unimer, I still haven't figured out exactly how to pronounce the company name, but he saw the video and he reached out saying that they would like to send us some of their U-cleat mooring compensators. This is a new product with a pretty cool feature. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, he did send us these 4 mooring compensators for free. What's interesting about the U-cleat mooring compensators is this blue plastic doohickey and either end of them. This is supposed to make it easier to remove the mooring compensator. With a more traditional rubber mooring compensator without the U-cleat doohickey, removing the mooring compensator from a mooring line once that mooring line has been used is incredibly difficult. I've had to do it a couple of times, and on both occasions I had to cut the line into tiny bits to be able to remove the mooring compensator. You might be asking, but why would you want to remove a mooring compensator? Well, on the 2 occasions where I've had to do it, it was because the line had chafed and I simply just wanted to move the mooring compensator to a new bit of line. But you could also have a line that had gotten really stiff from salt and you just wanted to throw that in the washing machine. That would be nice to be able to remove the mooring compensator for. Or maybe you've pulled into a new marina and the positioning of your mooring compensator is a little bit off. Either way, if the U-cleat doohickey works, I think this is going to be a really welcomed upgrade. To make new mooring lines, we'll need some rope. This is known as 3-strand. This is probably, in my opinion, the best price to performance option out there. There are, of course, other options available out there for mooring lines, but we've just had really good luck in terms of both price and performance with good old 3-strand. 3-strand is typically available in 2 different materials. There is either nylon or polyester. Some people will tell you that you must go with nylon because it has a slightly better stretch to it. Some people will tell you that you must go with polyester because it has slightly better UV resistance. I will tell you to go with whatever you can get your hands on. I found this handy dandy little comparison chart from a company in the UK that sells both nylon and polyester 3-strand, and the company also mentioned that either one is a perfectly fine option. I'll include a link for this website down in the description. So yeah, I would say go with whatever is available locally and what you can get your hands on. Now let's get started on new mooring lines. First things first, let's put some eye-splices in. I like to make the eye-splices on our mooring lines a little shorter than the overall length of our cleats. A while back I made myself a little splicing bag with all of my splicing gear. It's a little bit messy as you can see, but at least everything is in one bag. I marked a 1 meter on our kitchen island and set to work measuring out each of the mooring lines. The spring will be around 1.5 times the length of the boat, and the fore and aft lines will be around 3/4 of the length of the boat. A bit of tape is great for keeping the rope from unraveling, and a good pair of D-splice scissors makes cutting the rope a breeze. I count 18 crowns from the end and mark that location with a bit of tape. From there I measure out the eye to be around 24 centimeters. The only slightly tricky part about an eye splice is getting started. I like to lay out the loop on a flat surface and then simply bury the middle strand of the working end under the middle strand right after the last piece of tape. You'll know your start is correct when you have strands coming out in a nice uniform fashion like this. Then it's just a matter of jumping one strand and tugging under the next one. Once you have 4 or 5 tugs on each strand, that's usually fine. In this case, I'm going for a tapered eye splice, so I simply stagger the tugs, meaning 1 additional tug on the second strand and 2 additional tugs on the third strand. After having removed the tape and given the eye splice a quick rolling, it is all done. And like a good TV chef, I've cheated a little bit and prepared the rest of the mooring lines. The next step is to add the mooring compensators. The ones we have here are for a 16 to 20 millimeter line, which should go perfectly with our 18 millimeter 3-strand. The instructions are here on the back of the packaging. It looks fairly simple, so remove the U-cleat thingy, poke the line up through there, insert U-cleat thingy, wrap the line around 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and do the same thing with the U-cleat doodad at the other end. So loop the line up, put the thing in, and there we go. And 1, 2, 3, 4 beautiful new mooring lines with mooring compensators. Of course, when we leave here, we're going to be living at anchor for the next 6 months, so it'll be a while until we can actually use these. But now they're ready for when we get to the East Coast. That means we can go ahead and close this new mooring lines task. And for the next task, I want to replace the wireless chargers we've got out in the cockpit. But as you might be able to see by the sun that's right here, the sun is right out in the cockpit. So let's hold off until tomorrow morning. Good morning, guys. I am still struggling a little bit with the heat and humidity here in Trinidad, but the nights and the early mornings are actually kind of comfortable. Anywho, about 1.5 years ago, we installed 2 of these wireless phone charging doohickeys from Scanstrut here in the cockpit. I really like them because they give us somewhere to securely store our phone when we're on passage, and they also charge. We've had 0 issues with our 2 wireless chargers. They're still chugging along. My only tiny complaint is that the wireless charging is a little bit on the slow side, but wireless charging is inherently ineffective and it's never going to be the fastest way to charge. The old chargers are 5-watt chargers, and Scanstrut just came out with the new version, which is a 10-watt version. And pardon the look of this box here. We shipped it to Trinidad using DHL, and it got a little bit of a rough trip, but yeah, these are so easy to swap out. I figured it would be worth it to get a little bit faster charging. The chargers are held in place with 3 screws. After having cut the cable inside of the boat, it was super easy to remove the chargers. The hole around the cable is sealed with a little rubber doohickey rather than sealant. I think that helps a lot in making replacement easier. That's a nice touch from Scanstrut. I gave the screw holes a quick sanding and fed the cable for the new charger through before applying a little dab of sealant on each of the screw holes. Back inside of the boat, all I had to do was solder the wires and slide on a bit of heat shrink before then finally putting the headliner back in place. I've replaced both of the wireless chargers and I've flipped on the breaker, so let's see if they work. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but that's definitely a charging icon. Now, while we were in the US, I got a new iPhone. This is an old 12 mini, and this is the new 15 Pro Max. So pretty small phone, pretty big phone, and as you can see, they both fit. Ava actually had kind of a brilliant idea on one of our passages. I can't remember which one, but her AirPods were running low on juice. So she simply just put the wireless charger into like a horizontal mode and put the AirPods on top of it. It looks like we finished just in time for the rain to start. Now I'll see if I can find somebody here in the yard that can use the two old wireless chargers. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, and it would be nice if somebody else could get a bit of use out of them. We can go ahead and close the Rock Wireless Chargers task here. But yesterday, a fun little side quest kind of popped up. For this to be funny, a little bit of a backstory is required here. For the last 2 years, Ava's had a really nice Blue Sea USB charger on her side of the bed for charging her phone and her Kindle. I haven't had a USB charger on my side of the bed because running the wiring to it is a bit of a nightmare in that part of the boat. So I've just been kind of postponing it and pushing it off. Yesterday I was messing about in the locker down here next to our freezer, and I saw a couple of wires neatly coiled up and zip tied in place. The second I saw that pair of wires, I realized that I had already run the wiring to the forward cabin for a little fuse block for running miscellaneous stuff, like for instance a USB charger. I did that way back in Denmark when I ran the conduit for it. I just completely forgot that I also run the wiring because I was so busy getting the boat ready to leave Denmark. So really, for the last 2 years, all I've had to do to get USB charging on my side of the bed is just install a fuse plug. All the wiring is already in place. Well, that and of course install some kind of USB charger. This little guy is actually kind of cool. He is completely waterproof, which I hope we won't need in the forward cabin. But the big upside is the waterproofing will act kind of like a bit of strain relief. So I think that's really nice. He's also got both Type A and Type C USB. And he's a 60-watt charger, meaning I can charge not only my phone, but also my laptop. So that means if I want to use my laptop in the forward cabin and it's running a bit low, no longer do I need to move the wall charging bricky thingy. I can simply just plug my laptop into the USB charger. I have 2 of these little chargers, one for my side of the bed and one for Ava's side of the bed, because I figured once she sees my laptop charging capabilities, she's gonna be jealous. But I've already installed the one on my side of the bed. It's in here in our pantry. Or that's to say the back of the charger is here inside of the pantry. But if you look at these spade connectors here on the back, those protrude out a good distance there. And it's going to be very easy to accidentally move some stuff around here in the pantry and ding those. So yeah, I think we need some kind of guard. I brought back a small piece of acrylic from the US, and as luck would have it, it's basically the perfect size. After having scored a line to give me a clean break, I used a pair of pliers to snap off the small piece I would need. Using a heat gun, I heated the plastic to the point where I could bend it. The hotter you get the plastic, the smaller the radius bend you seem to be able to make. I carefully drilled a few holes and secured the guard to the bulkhead with 3 screws. And just like that, we have a quick, easy, yet durable little guard so we don't mess up the USB charger. While I had Mr. Heat Gun out, I cheated a little bit because I have a task here on the board that's electric winch brain box fuse cover. And all that required me to do was to make another little acrylic cover to protect the breaker in our locker in the aft cabin. Pardon the mess in here, but it's the breaker way down here I'm talking about. If we just cram stuff into the locker, it's easy to trip that breaker. Ta-da! Another doohickey protected with a tiny bit of acrylic. This is the fuse plug I'm going to be installing in the forward cabin next to the freezer. We don't currently have any other plans for smaller DC stuff we want to run in the forward cabin, but with the fuse plug in place, expanding or adding stuff in the future is going to be super straightforward. What the fuse block allows us to do is to run a thicker gauge wire to a certain part in the boat and then have that, this is 8 gauge I think, branch into smaller circuits with a smaller gauge wire, like for instance this 1.5 square millimeter wire. And very importantly, while doing that, still have the smaller gauge wire here be protected by a fuse. The fuse block comes with a single ATO or ATC 15 amp fuse here, but of course we can swap that out and populate the other slots with whatever size fuse we need. We have 6 square millimeter cable because, of course, I did all the wiring back in Europe where we use square millimeters instead of American wire gauge. But we have 6 square millimeter cable running from the nav station into the forward cabin. That is going to be fused at 15 amps at the distribution panel, mainly because that's the only size breaker I have available. Blue Sea has this handy dandy ABYC ampacity chart here that we can reference. We need to look in this column here because the wiring is run in a conduit. It's 105C rated and we had 6 square millimeters, so it looks like we can get away with 45 amps. That's way more than I think we'll ever need, and like I mentioned, it'll be fused at 15 amps because that's the only breaker I have available, but yeah, it's just a bit of future proofing. From the fuse plug up to the DC charger, we're going to be using some of this 1.5 square millimeter cable, and while it's important to consider ampacity, of course we should also consider voltage drop. And I have this little app on my phone which I think is pretty handy. We can set the voltage, the current, and the circuit length, and then we can see that with this 1.5 square millimeter cable, we'll have a voltage drop of less than 1%. A voltage drop less than 1% is really, really good, and at least theoretically we could have gone with a smaller gauge wire. But the smallest gauge I have used here aboard the boat generally is 1.5 square millimeters. It sits somewhere in between a 14 and a 16 American wire gauge in the US, and of course 16 is the smallest allowed gauge by the ABYC, except for, yeah, of course there are some exceptions, but yeah, 1.5 square millimeter, it's light yet very sturdy. It's a good gauge. It was so dark and cramped that the footage from installing the fuse block turned out horrible, but as you can see, it's all installed and wired up. So I should now have a working USB charger on my side of the bed. Yep, it's charging, and as you can see on the plug here, we're charging with around 27 watts. Mind you, I believe that is limited by the phone, not the charger. So yeah, the Scanstrut USB charger is capable of fast charging. I would have loved to be able to test the USB charger with my laptop to see what kind of wattage we can actually pull from that USB charger. But unfortunately, my laptop is in Michigan with Ava for a quick little repair. But speaking of Ava, we finally have a bit of clarity about our upcoming plans.
Hi guys, from a slightly chilly but very sunny Michigan. Actually, I'm heating up a little bit standing in the sun, but the SAG-AFTRA strike is finally over and that's what we have been waiting on. So next week I'm going to be flying to Budapest with my sister. She's going to be working there for about a month and I'm going to be working watching my niece Eleanor. So it's a pretty sweet gig, I do have to say. Then after that, Mads is gonna fly to Michigan and we're gonna spend Christmas here with my family, but it's a secret. My dad's working in the garage right now and we're gonna surprise him. He doesn't know we'll be here. But then after that, we're gonna be flying back to Trinidad and hopefully mid-January, we're gonna start working our way north up the chain and we are so excited. But I think we're mostly excited that our plans are all sorted now. Everything has been up in the air for a while, so it's sorted and we're ready to go, and it leaves lots of time for Mads to get projects done on the boat. So Mads, I am sorry to be leaving you in sweaty hot Trinidad working on those projects, even though I know you love it. And I hope you guys all enjoy all the projects and all the DIY that's coming up. But yeah, I will see you guys all soon. Bye-bye. Over and out from Michigan. I just had to jump back real quick. This is my dad.
Hi, guys.
And if you thought that this was going to be a fun leisure trip to Michigan, you thought wrong. He's putting me to work. We have this 12 by 20
Girl power.
utility tent to put together. So yeah, Sail Life, Michigan division. Let's get it.
Leave a like.
Bye.
Yes, do indeed please leave a like. Now it sounds like I'm gonna have some time here in Trinidad. I still have plenty of projects here, but some of the projects, they have a little piece of blue tape on them. Those are projects that are not ready for me to get started on, either because the boat needs to be back in the water or because we need materials to do them that I'm still trying to source, or we're waiting for a quote for one of them too. I will do my very best to start chasing those, and yeah, then next week we dive into something new. I haven't fully figured out what projects I'll start up next week. It depends a little bit on what materials I can get, but I'll figure that out. So yeah, I hope to see all you guys back here aboard Athena next week for yet more oh glorious DIY fun. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like. See you!